Welcome back to Pillow Talk Sessions. I'm Christian Lipinski, joined as always by my co-host Jessica Guillaume.
Thank you, Christian. And today we're joined by Alexander Limpert, who is the co-founder and CEO of both RentalReady and GuestReady. Alex brings deep insight into the intersection of hospitality, short-term rentals, technology, and also mid-term rentals.
We'll be diving into the rise of flex living, how operators are navigating the push toward hotelization, and what it really takes to build trust with both guests and property owners. Alex, welcome to Pillow Talk Sessions. It's great to have you on the show, but before we jump into today's conversation, maybe you can give us a bit of background on you, RentalReady and GuestReady.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm Alex, the co-founder and CEO of GuestReady and RentalReady. I started GuestReady 10 years ago almost, and it's been a great journey. Obviously, the industry has moved a lot, and so have we. And over the years, we've scaled GuestReady to 7 different locations, 4,000 units. We're now the largest short-term rental manager in Western Europe in urban areas. And to scale this business, we have built RentalReady, which is our PMS that has become the probably most comprehensive short-term rental PMS in the industry, AI at its core. And we've gotten a lot of requests from the industry over the time that we built RentalReady to open it up to the market. And that's what we did a couple of years ago. And now RentalReady is empowering lots of other property managers to grow their business and hopefully scale to the same levels as GuestReady. And I'm very excited about that because I love empowering small entrepreneurs, mid-sized entrepreneurs, and help them grow their business.
Brilliant, Alex. And you and I were reminiscing recently that we've known each other almost that whole 10 years because Abode Worldwide is also coming up to 10 years. And I think you were one of my first calls that I had when I started Abode Worldwide. And I still remember being on a boat in the middle of Greece, answering the phone to you. And over the years, we've seen each other at events. I've had you on different panels, and I always really enjoy talking with you. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And it's quite a journey that you've had, growing first GuestReady to being one of the largest operators in Western Europe, and then also being a software provider and a tech solution. Why have you gone down those journeys? And what is it that you think that you have learned? And what do you bring to the table, I guess, from the tech? Because being an operator, you're not the first and only operator to develop tech, but you have done it really successfully. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, thanks. And I do remember that first phone call as well. I think I was in Amsterdam, and Amsterdam was actually the city where we had our first few properties, the first 2, but we never scaled more than 2 properties in Amsterdam. It wasn't a very long journey for us there, but luckily we've been more successful in other cities. And so that's about that first conversation with you. And going back to your follow-up question then, well, maybe let's take a step back. Well, originally, before GuestReady, I was in food delivery, which is a completely different industry, but it's also very operational and very logistics heavy, and you need to coordinate a lot of different moving parts, the same as property managers have to do. And in food delivery, originally, I was country managing director at Foodpanda. We only had a platform to connect restaurants with the end consumer. So similar how OTAs, Airbnb, Booking.com connect guests with the hosts. And what we realized is that restaurants are good at cooking the food, not very good at delivering the food. So if we wanted to make it a better experience for everyone, we had to go one level deeper and actually take care of the operations too. And to do that, we realized we needed to have strong technology to coordinate all the different aspects, apps for the restaurants, apps for the riders, apps for the end consumers. And we said that in our industry, in short-term rentals, is essentially the same. As an operator, you have so many moving parts that you need to think about: the cleaning, the linen, the maintenance, the guest arrivals, the owner communication, and so on and so forth. And if you want to scale that, and we knew that from the beginning, we needed to have really strong technology. So that was sort of the starting point of our technology journey. We never said that we have to create this technology absolutely in-house. We said, let's look what's on the market. And actually, we started off by leveraging third-party technology and a third-party PMS. And that worked well for the very beginning. But then we realized that a lot of the PMS that existed on the market, they were more focused on helping you to market on different OTAs, maybe more the online aspects, because that's what software companies do a lot. They focus on online parts, but they didn't really capture all the offline elements of property management and the relationship with the clients and so on. So we started to build on top of the PMS an owner app, a task management app for cleaning and maintenance, coordinating all of that, a really good guest messaging inbox and so on. And sooner or later we had replaced all the elements of the PMS, and we then we had built our full suite, and that was then the beginning of RentalReady. And whenever we talked with others about our technology, they were quite excited and asked us if we could open it up to them. And well, back then it was just an internal software, but we made that step eventually and opened it up to the market. And that's become now a separate journey that has been very successful for our clients at RentalReady, but also for us.
It's not for the faint-hearted to build, is it? But you have done it successfully, which is really fantastic. And I just want to reflect on something about the food delivery. So food delivery has changed the way that we eat out, basically, or that we eat. And it's been revolutionary all across the worlds in every kind of community. And I guess you brought with you to property management a sort of an understanding that you needed to think about processes and systems and technology rather than just what maybe typically property managers might start with, which is the hospitality piece and being very sort of guest focused in a way rather than systems, process, operations focused. And that's really interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's a very, very good point. And that's probably a point that at GuestReady we underestimated a bit in the beginning, because we knew that we needed to have these processes, these systems, this technology to scale. But on top of that, and you're absolutely right, you also need the hospitality mindset, the true care for the guests, and also for the owners. And only if those two elements can be brought together as an operator, you can really scale and be successful. And that's why also the journey of GuestReady and RentalReady have over time separated more and more. Originally, we saw GuestReady more as a tech platform, a sort of a prop tech platform. And it's
not very fashionable anymore to call a hospitality business a prop tech.
And well, I think there are different ways to look at it, right? But our journey has moved on the GuestReady side much more on the hospitality side of things, and then on the RentalReady side, it's a pure software play. And I think those two elements needs to be combined. And I think as an operator, you really want to be hospitality focused. You also need to have the processes and systems in mind, and for that you need to have good technology, but you don't have to build that in-house. You can luckily now there's RentalReady, which truly understands operators and is built from an operating mindset to support other operators.
I was going to jump in and ask you, AI is a big game changer here in all sectors, not just hospitality. This gives way to a lot of automation, things that free people up from having to, sit and type and do paperwork, that they can actually offer this kind of hospitality more style. How do you decide what should be automated and what needs that personal human touch? And, where have you seen this technology make the biggest difference day to day?
AI now is very good at language, and that's the obvious first part that everybody is talking about, and that also we have addressed with RentalReady. So at RentalReady, we've, to my knowledge, been the first PMS to actually integrate with OpenAI. That was over 2.5 years ago, around 2.5 years ago. And back then it was sort of a button to create an AI response, and it took a very long time to load, and it was very expensive also from a cost of to reply through the API. But over time it's become so powerful, and now we're in the third version of our AI assistant Maya in RentalReady. And the AI for each guest message checks if it's confident enough, if it has all the information to reply, and then automatically replies if it's confident. If not, then it raises the ticket to guests. And on top of that, we do the review replies. We do a sentiment analysis of the guest sentiment, and then based on this guest mood, we can then trigger different events. For example, if the guest is happy, you definitely want to chase them for a review. If they're not so happy, then maybe you leave the chaser out. Things like that, smart automations. And it's been super powerful. We can do audits of all the reviews and send that to create a report for the owners that they really appreciate. So a lot around language. There's a lot that we can do on. I'm sure there's a lot that can be done on pricing. It's not something that is the area where we invest as much. There are really good tools out there that do that. But yeah, there's a ton to be done, and also I think on coordinating different aspects of maintenance, for example, cleaning. I think voice AI is maybe not as good yet. But I see a future where maintenance providers or so are called up by an AI and coordinated by an AI. So this might be the future.
Alex, I moderated you on a panel in Croatia, VRM days, recently, just a few weeks ago, and it was a tech panel. And I believe one of the questions that I asked the panel was around AI changing the way search and discoverability happens. And this was before Google announced its new Google trip search that I know it's just in the US, I believe, at the moment, but it was literally, it's just been kind of launched, and how it's changing the way people are discovering and finding properties. And you had quite an interesting answer, and I will remind you of it. I think you said something along the lines of you were not concerned because you've got the inventory. And if you've got the inventory, you don't need to be concerned necessarily. And I may have that slightly wrong. But do you still feel that way? Because I think that the way AI is changing the way we buy anything now, we find anything, not just vacation rentals, short-term rentals, properties, is changing the way that we buy and consume and find products, if you like. But I just wonder what your take is on that. And is it the same answer that you gave in Croatia?
I would stick with that answer because in the end, it's, as you say, we're discovering products differently, and we're booking them differently maybe. But in the end, we still, if it's a good product, then it will still be bought. It maybe not through an OTA, maybe it's directly through ChatGPT or your personal AI travel assistant, whatever it is. It will still be booked, right? I think one thing I would imagine is that AI is becoming very good at knowing your preferences, and is very good at also understanding different trade-offs. So maybe if there are more favorable booking options when going through Airbnb or Booking.com or any other OTA, then it might be difficult to get direct bookings. But as long as the conditions are the best to book direct, then I think AI would probably want to go that route eventually. And so I think my answer still holds true.
Sticking on the technology, I got one more thing to ask you about that's quite interesting. And we spoke a bit about it. You said GuestReady had made more than 10 acquisitions, while RentalReady, enables smaller business to operate more efficiently. Do you think technology will level the playing field, or will scale still be the defining advantage in the years ahead?
Yeah, and I think that's a crucial question that I'm actually very interested to see how it will play out. On the one side, definitely, as you say, there are economies of scale, and there are benefits of having scale, having better access to capital, having a more distributed workforce that can split the work more efficiently and so on. And there are definitely these advantages, but on the other side, as you say, their technology empowers smaller players more. So, for example, for RentalReady, well, we're empowering smaller property managers not just with the booking and listing on different platforms, but also automating the whole payment cycle, including the payouts to their hosts and splitting between their own share and hosts and even providers. So we can do like a triple split, fully automated. We can take care of the guest messaging 24/7 for them with RentalReady. We can automate the task assignment for cleaning and so on, and also the check-in process if there are smart locks or smart ways to enter the property. So a lot can be automated, and I think for tech-savvy small property managers, they can run a business now much more efficiently. And I see this as a bit of a parallel. Let's look at e-commerce, where we have Amazon, that is a huge global player that is incredibly strong and has a very good offering. But on the other side, you have Shopify, that is also one of the largest tech companies globally, that is empowering small and medium-sized e-commerce players and really giving them the best tools to actually compete then with a player like Amazon. And I see RentalReady a bit like that, the Shopify for short-term rentals, empowering local entrepreneurs and competing with the large companies.
I want to move on to a different topic now, Alex. And on this podcast, we've interviewed quite a few operators from the service living sectors. So that's build to rent, co-living, multifamily. And one of the things that we talked to them about is the hotelization of real estate. So the kind of changing expectations of tenants and residents, and the changing way operators are delivering their service offering. And it's more of a focus on experience, more of a focus on service, more of a focus on just that little bit extra than you typically might have in a rental, kind of the rental unit. We've also had student operators on. You're on the other side of it, that you come from that hospitality side, but I believe you also have certainly a midterm offering, but do you also have a long-term rental offering? And do you have any thoughts on that, or whether the hotelization of just the way we live is what we're seeing, or is it just a kind of a term that's used and flung about here and there?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts that come to my mind now on this topic. I always describe it as a way of blurring lines between hotels and long-term rentals. And maybe before, there are like a couple of decades ago, you have those two options: either you stay short-term in a hotel, or you stay long-term then in a apartment that you rent long-term, or that maybe you even buy. And now you have a whole lot of options, from weekly up to monthly to yearly service living and co-living. And it's actually really great to see all these different options. And I think what is driving that is that more people live a more flexible lifestyle. We're becoming more mobile. We enjoy that flexibility. We want to live, many people want to live an asset-light lifestyle, I mean, including myself. And maybe it's also more limited to bigger cities, less so smaller cities or countryside. But in bigger cities like London or Paris, or any similar cities globally, many properties are furnished. You don't have to buy furniture. You don't have to invest in these kind of assets. And on top of that, you have more service offering now. And that's also something that we provide at GuestReady. We're not in the 12 months plus. We're not in the true tenancy agreement space, but we do offer anything up to 12 months where people just arrive with their luggage and they have everything in the property. They can organize cleaning through us. They have all the amenities in the property fully equipped. So yeah, we definitely see that people appreciate that convenience that we offer, not needing to organize utilities and change things around and buy new stuff for the kitchen, things like that. It's definitely much appreciated, and I think it will become bigger part of the market.
And on top of that, I mean, yeah, like you said, you mentioned it being a lifestyle thing, and it's a shift in lifestyle. Do you think this is like, for the next 10 years, or is this like the way we're gonna live now, and future generations are gonna live? They're not gonna want to settle down, buy a house or anything like this. That their life is about being able to have this flexibility moving forward.
I think it's a lifestyle shift. I don't think this will be for everyone. I think this will still be for a minority of people in the end. But I think it will be for a growing minority of people. And of course, if you have a family, you have kids going to school, then probably you're not going to change around every couple of months. But for younger generations and for those that are maybe a bit more flexible in their setup, I think this is very attractive, and it's going to be a growing demand, and also the offer will grow in this segment. It's very clear. I think it's only going to go in one direction.
In terms of markets that you guys operate in, and by the way, I don't think I've ever told you this, but I live next door to a GuestReady property. But in terms of markets that you operate in Europe, what do you see as the kind of nuances? Is like one particular one more difficult than the other? And I guess I'm thinking of this from a legislation point of view as well. Like, where do you see the growth, or where are you most excited about as well?
Yeah, good question. And I also hope that our guests always behave next as your neighbors.
You get a phone call.
So, if not, then you know who to call. Yes,
they're perfectly fine guests.
Thank you. That's what I like to hear. They have a good manager looking after them. So, in terms of markets, actually, it's interesting. Being in different markets, I have observed over the years that there's always one market that is doing better and one market or so that is doing a bit worse, and then it changes around the other a couple of years later, right? So it comes and goes in waves, and maybe regulation tightens and then it changes again, or the supply increases and there's oversupply, and then a couple of years later people leave the market again and there's undersupply, and there's always dynamics. So it's actually helpful also to be in different markets. It also brings complexity, of course. It's easier to just operate in one market. But in terms of those dynamics, it's helpful to be in different markets and hedge a bit between the different markets. So I wouldn't say there's one market that stands out. I think each market has their own dynamics, and each market has their own regulation and so on. Yeah, that's what I would say on this topic.
But in terms of legislation and regulations, what's your view on it? Like, what do you think is a good solution for the industry?
I don't think there's one good solution, but the way how I see it is that often now short-term rentals are being blamed for housing shortage, and I absolutely don't agree to that notion. I think it's typically cities that are very popular for long-term living, but also for short-term visiting that have a housing shortage. And the only way that we can solve this is by building more in these cities. And that's actually going to also help the economic growth and create jobs in these cities, and not by just regulating and restricting more and more and more. But I also agree that there needs to be some limitations. Ideally, I think it needs to be reasonable. I don't think we can just completely forbid short-term rentals, but I think reasonable legislation can be some nightly caps or a contingent of number of properties that can have a license full year round. I think there's definitely a need for this product, and it's very helpful also to have a flexible stock of apartments that are more flexible rather than that needed to be rented for 12 months, because as we said, there is a growing demand for that, and this demand is true, and it's there, and it's not going to go away just because that offer in the city goes away. But of course there shouldn't be just complete freedom to operate as short-term rentals. I think there needs to be some sort of control. I think it makes sense to understand which properties have a license or are registered for short-term rentals. I think it makes sense for cities to have that overview, but I don't agree to just completely forbidding short-term rentals.
And on that, how do you approach these markets that remain unclear or in flux? Do you wait for clarity, or do you build like adaptable operating models, from the start?
We always play with the rules, right? We look at the rules, what they are, and then we stick to those rules. And in a market like Dubai, for example, it's very easy to get a new license. So we can help owners to get new licenses. In a market like Lisbon, there are no new licenses, at least for now. So we just work more with the existing licenses that are available. In a market like Paris, there are clear nightly caps for primary residences, and then there are commercial properties that can be rented year-round. So we do both of those, and also the software supports with that, supports different models, and I think that's how we approach it. Just adapt to the local markets and the local regulatory realities.
Let's talk about owners a little bit now, because that's your primary customer is the owner rather than the guest, isn't it? So how do you build trust with them and differentiate? Because the owners, they're looking at things like legislation. They're looking at, certainly in the UK, things like the Renters Reform Bill. So longer term rents are looking less attractive to have longer term tenants over here. Like, how do you approach owners with GuestReady and building that trust with them?
Yeah, so that's firstly I would say it's the eternal question: who is the more important part, the owner or the guest? And then of course for RentalReady, our most important customer are the property managers. But for GuestReady, the journey has been that initially we only saw the owners as our main customer, and we optimized everything for them, and we just listened to them. Whatever they wanted, we said yes, because we also saw each other more we saw us more as a platform. I think now we see us at GuestReady more as a advisor to these owners, and an advisor that sometimes also says things that maybe an owner doesn't want to hear, like for example that they need to invest in their property, where initially maybe would have just taken properties as they are. We have now very clear standards of what we accept and what we don't accept, and it's in the end for the benefit of the owner, because we know as operators what works in the market and what doesn't, and what actually works with the guests, because we're not operating in a vacuum. We're competing against so many thousands and tens of thousands of other short-term rentals. And we're not only competing against short-term rentals, we're competing against hotels, apart hotels. We're competing against individual hosts that host people in their spare bedroom and provide a super personalized service and so on. So it's as I said before, this whole spectrum that is just becoming one range of different options. And as operators, we understand that we need to stick out with the options. We need to deliver the best service to guests, and we need to have the best reviews and the most attractive offer. And only then can we actually truly deliver value for our owners too. And I think that's what the savvy owners understand, that their product will only work if it works well for the guests, because in the end it's the guests that choose where to spend their money. they have so many options, right? And we need to attract these guests to us and to our owners, and we need to advise the owners that they have a strong offer. So that's a bit the way how our thinking on owners versus guests and what we have to do for them, how that has evolved over the years.
Yeah, that's quite a shift. I have a question, and you may already do this, but I'm not aware that you do. Apart hotels and actually running kind of hotels as well, then you just have one owner. It's always, on paper, it's a lot more simple as well. Is that part of your game plan, is to go into the apart hotel and hotel sector as well a little bit more?
Yeah, for GuestReady, that's definitely a big part of what we're doing now. We're seeing more and more demand from professional investors that don't just invest in one unit, but they're investing in an entire hospitality building with 10, 20, 30, 50 keys, and then they're looking for an operator, and we're ideally positioned to support them, because we have proven that we can run even individual units across the city efficiently and professionally and profitably. So managing entire buildings is much simpler. You have much more control, and we can be extremely efficient. We can just take this building and plug it into our infrastructure, no additional overhead needed, versus traditional hospitality operator. They always operate on premise. They always allocate fixed resources to each individual hospitality asset, and we don't have to do that. We have the whole infrastructure and whole technology already, and we can just seamlessly plug in these new assets. So it's something that these investors understand, that we operate more lean, we deliver great guest experience and great yields for them. So big part of what we're doing, and also driven by regulation, right? That regulation in Europe and in most markets, I think globally, is only becoming stricter. I think at some point in time we'll probably reach a limit, but for now it's becoming a bit stricter every year. And that, on the other side, opens opportunities for professional investors to invest, because the more restrictive a market, the higher the ADRs, the higher the RevPAN, and the higher the yields can be. And that's what these professional investors understand. And that's what we see happening now.
You mentioned briefly about, regulations and consistency. I wonder about the brand. How do you maintain brand consistency when the inventory spans multiple ownership structures, property types, local regulations? How do you keep that on a level playing field if this is what we do?
Yeah, very good question. And definitely our ambition is not to have the brand that every property, every room looks exactly the same. I think we're the opposite of that. Our premise and our ambition was always to bring the best of a home together with the best of a hotel as GuestReady, and to mirror that local character of a local home, and bring that to guests, but with a professional service layer that you'd expect from a hotel on top. Because why are short-term rentals doing so well? Well, because many people, they don't want to stay in a cookie cutter type hotel where every room looks exactly the same everywhere around the globe. They actually travel. We travel because we want to have a local experience, and therefore our ambition is not that every place looks the same. Our ambition is that we have different properties, but that all live up to a certain standard of the property, and then we bring our service levels on top of that. And that's what our ambition is. And that's why also before I said our standard of what we expect from properties, what we expect from owners, also in terms of their investment into the property, that's only become higher over the years, and that's supporting that brand standard.
Excellent. It feels kind of refreshing to hear you say that, rather than we must be like hotels and everyone must know exactly what to expect when they turn up to one of our properties. It's kind of, obviously they will expect a good service. They'll expect all the amenities that's in the listing, but it might be a very different listing when they actually arrive, as long as it's what's being promised to them. It's a brand promise, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's the key word, as long as what is promised, and it needs to be very clear, the expectation management, because in the end, the guest's delight is just the difference between their expectation and reality, and hopefully reality is at or above the expectation, and that's what we're working really hard towards, that also we're not looking to oversell what the property is, or that there are some truth about each property that we need to highlight. Maybe some property is perfect located, but it's because it's so perfectly located, it might be a bit loud at night. So if you are a very light sleeper, then maybe this is not the best option for you, and we want to highlight this truth. Or it can be a great property in a great location, but it's in the 5th floor without an elevator. If you're traveling with a light luggage, a backpack only, perfect for you, but if you have heavy suitcases, maybe not. So it's just about making this very clear, and that's something that we're also have done a lot of work over time.
I think that's a perfect place to come to an end, Alex. And it's been great speaking with you. So thank you so much for coming on. And I don't know, Christian, do you want to finish us out with asking the last question?
Yeah, absolutely. One more important final question for you, Alex. Any last thoughts for our audience? And then, of course, if people are interested in finding out more, where should they go?
And thank you for the chat. It's been great. Well, as we talked about, everybody's excited about AI, and so am I. And I think one part I didn't mention, which is I'm very excited the way how we built RentalReady with the property information at the heart of RentalReady accessible to AI. And originally we built it this way because as a large operator, GuestReady had the need to have all the property information that maybe as a small operator you might hold in your head. We had the need, we absolutely had to put this into the system in a very structured manner. So for example, when we onboard a property at GuestReady, we put down over 200 pieces of information. And that's how we built RentalReady, a very sophisticated data architecture, so that our team, let's say in the guest communication at GuestReady, we have over 30 people that they can always access all this information without ever having been at the property. And the cool thing now is that AI can access this information. And what I hear sometimes from other operators is that the system they're using is, or they're using different systems and they're maybe not talking each so well together. And the way how we've built RentalReady is with the data at the heart flowing to the different parts of the system, the task management, the owner app, the guest messaging system, and so on. And that's all accessible by AI. And I think that gives us a unique advantage to unlock more efficiency through AI than maybe some other systems that were not built this way. So that's something really cool. And I hope we can harness this power. And I'm very excited about all the stuff that we're going to build in AI going forward, and how to empower again the small operators through that. And if you want to find out more, check out RentalReady, check out GuestReady on our websites, rentalready.com, guestready.com, and also follow us on LinkedIn. And thanks again for having me on the show.
Brilliant. Alex, thank you.
And that wraps it up for today's episode of Pillow Talk Sessions. Thank you so much for joining us. And to stay connected and never miss a conversation, head over to pillowtalksessions.com to subscribe. You can also follow us on LinkedIn for more insights and interviews with leaders shaping the future of hospitality, multifamily living, and community-driven spaces. Pillow Talk Sessions is brought to you by Abode Worldwide, the strategic public relations agency for tech brands and tech-enabled operators, transforming the way we work, play, and stay. Abode Worldwide creates category leaders and builds brand value across hospitality and modern rental living. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Pillow Talk Sessions.